Yes, it's time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but we can't find anyone with the cojones, the integrity, to present any counter-argument in any kind of reasonable form, any kind of equally credible form. Instead, just a lot of poo talking by arrogant, obnoxious individuals who haven't, again, the honesty to man up and make counter arguments. They claim something to be true, and they just want to beat people to death with their little placards saying, "My dogma is the truth. My God is God." So the traditional physicists actually believe, right, they actually say it, but they don't believe it, that it takes 100 times the energy to spin a motor 10 times as fast. That's the consequence of their brilliant physics. It says it is so, and you must believe it is so, or they will attempt to shut you down and shut you up. They don't want the argument to be public. They don't want the controversy to be resolved. They want to just propagandize for an old, tired, stupid, ignorant idea, and that's all they're about. That's all they live for, okay, is their lies, their dogma, their unthought through, ignorant, superficial crap, frankly. All right, so I made a very good video explaining some, and it's only some, it's only like 32% of all of the paradoxical nonsense that is a part of physics. And this is the response from Understanding Physics by Dave. So he propagandizes himself as someone who does understand physics, who has done his research, who does know what he's talking about. And no, he's not. He's just been told what to say, and he just says it. He doesn't know this stuff to be true because he's seen it to be true. He says it's true because somebody told him it's true. That's it. That's the extent of his the intellectual energy he has spent on the subject. He just believed the whatever the shit talkers. And so he said, and Thomas Young came up with 1/2 mv squared. So it's not true. Okay, it's not the physical truth. I mean, the only real reference to Thomas Young in reference to this subject is the fact that he wanted to teach women, okay, physics, which is admirable. And so he made a simplified version, and so he was the first person to use the word energy, to have some conceptual word to describe this idea, okay, of motion in the universe. But clearly he was a wave guy. He was completely caught up in all of this nonsense about frames and all the other woo physics. And clearly he's notoriously wrong in his double slit analysis when, frankly, he wasn't doing a double slit experiment. And I think he knew it. I mean, why would you make slits infinitesimally small? Wouldn't you make them regularly sized first and see what kind of pattern you get? Because if you make them a regular size, you get a very complex pattern, one not indicating waves. Okay. You should do some research. So this line, I should do some research, when obviously you're the ignoramus here, okay? I mean, you don't know who Leibniz is, you don't know who Madame Chartelet is, you don't know that's where the real controversy began. That's when it was really debated as a subject. It wasn't debated in the 1800s, okay? They had all become wavists by then. They were all indoctrinated by then, okay? So the argument was over, and it was just about justifying the dogma. So they were contriving mathematics to circularly justify their mathematics. And that's where the work equation was created, this silly notion that it's about how far something travels. Decides how much energy it has, when no, it's about, frankly, it's about how much work it does. And If it's traveling, and that is you're taking its energy away with friction or something, the friction is going to be different depending on the velocity. You'll lose less of your energy depending on your velocity. The faster you go across thin ice, the less pressure you put on the thin ice. That means the less you lost, as a fact. All right, you're the one who's ignorant, and you're just arrogant and obnoxious and rude. I made a video explaining how, yes, these are real arguments, okay, we can have a little bit of contention. And what did you start with? You should do some research. An accusation you can't justify. I've spent 10 years researching. 10 years. Okay. You're the one who's ignorant and wrong. And yet you type this tripe. So I remained polite. Okay. And I responded with, this is just, again, it's just another profile in cowardice. You cannot get a physicist to man up and argue the argument. You can't pay them to do it. You can't humiliate them to do it. You can't do anything to get them to do it. Because all they are is jihading religious fanatic nuts. Okay? The fact is they probably would put me in jail if they could. Okay? Because I'm defying their authority. I'm claiming the simple truth, which is their degree doesn't mean anything. All they've done is memorize some songs. 1/2 mv squared, forky thing times double forky thing equals triple forky thing. They've just memorized some symbols and play their little harmonica. They're not musicians. They're not writing any opuses here. They're not, this will never be, their physics will never make it to Broadway. Because it's nonsense. If they told people what the real consequences, again, if they said to people, it takes 100 times the fuel to go 10 times faster. If you drive your car at 50 miles an hour, you've wasted, 25 times the fuel. I guess it would be 50 times, but whatever. 5 times, no, 50 miles an hour from 10 miles an hour. 10 times the amount, 25 times the amount of fuel to go 50 miles an hour versus 10 miles an hour. That's what their physics says is an absolute fact. It's clearly not an absolute fact. It's clearly just rubbish. And here they are selling it and insulting people who have the intelligence to say this emperor is not wearing any clothes. Okay, these are naked emperors. And they're just talking absolute shit. And they're doing it to children. And they're defending that. That's really obscene. All right, anyway, so I responded. Can't say this is much of a response, but I'll take what I can get. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz was the first to publish the theory of a living force, VMV. And he did it months before. So let's understand, Newton was in isolation for 5 years before he published the Principia. Okay, everybody knew he was working on it. Everybody knew he was going to be publishing this incredible book that was going to explain everything. Okay, so everybody knew that. And Leibniz published right before, just as, because he's Leibniz and he needed to be somebody. Okay, this Leibniz character wore pretentious, insanely pretentious, biggest wigs any human being has ever worn. Okay, real expensive clothing, and requested that people refer to him as von Leibniz, even though he wasn't a von, because he just loved the way it sounded. This is the guy whose physics you've adopted. This is the religion you're preaching. All right, anyway. First, and again, he called it the living force. Come on. All right, he believed that material objects had souls, solitons, and monads. It's garbage theory. Clearly garbage, rubbish, nonsense theory. And he thought Descartes was too much of an atheist. A Jesuit was too much of an atheist. And he wanted to censor Descartes and Newton. He asked the king to censor them because he was so emphatic that they were destroying religion. This is what he did with his time. And this is the physics you're defending. And you won't respond to the accusation that's frankly, if you're going to tell these fake stories to children, you're just molesting their intelligence. You're just child molesters, frankly. All right, anyway, living force, a few months before Newton published the Principia. The 1/2 was added when the work equation was developed, W equals FD. I suppose I should have put in here around 1820. Okay. And it was done by numerous people, not just Young. Young wasn't the guy who created this formula. It has to do with Hamiltonians and a bunch of other crapola that they were doing at the same time. All right. I haven't misquoted the history, and it's absolutely a fact that Newton directly opposed any squared velocity mechanics. Clearly, okay, and in the other comment section, I quote Newton again, clearly stating what he believed, okay, and these people just keep lying that he somehow endorsed some sort of per second logic, that I should say something like I'm driving to the store at 60 miles per hour, that somehow I should say it twice for some frickin' dumbass reason. This is what they're endorsing, this lie rhetoric, this baby talk, and they're shoving it in Newton. They're smearing Newton's integrity and name with this physics that he opposed directly from the person he hated most on this planet, the person who caused him the most grief. It's his physics, the guy who stole his calculus, frankly. And you're sitting there and putting his physics on Newton's face. It's disgusting that you do this to the greatest scientist in human history. Newton believed force was effectively the same thing as momentum, completely interchangeable. It's basically what he's saying, okay? I mean, yes, the mass is irrelevant. You're just going to change the velocity. Whatever force you put in, you'll get a proportional change in the velocity. That's what Newton directly stated, and you're just lying about what he said. You're contriving a bunch of nonsense he never believed in, and nobody can call you out on it. You can lie about Isaac Newton, and no one's allowed to call you out on those lies. And that you could directly convert one into the other. Clearly what he stated, clearly in his equations, clearly in everything he said, in the first, second, and third law, are basically just completely dramatically stating the thing that's conserved in the universe is the quantity of motion, and that is essentially the same thing as momentum. Just as a curiosity, how much would I have to pay you to actually address the arguments made in the video? Again, a ton of arguments made in the video, none of them touched in any way, just ignored again, okay, because these people are cowards, despicable, lying cowards. I mean, they really are lying about the history, lying about the fact that they know any of the history, and then accusing other people of being ignorant. It's disgusting. All right. So then I pointed out, I'm quite sincere regarding paying you for your time. If you can quote me a reasonable price for making a half-hour video refuting my arguments in my video, I will fairly compensate you for your tutoring assistance / time. So I'm sure this guy tutors people. I'm sure he does it for money. I'm sure he has in the 40 years he's been a teacher. And yet he won't do me the courtesy, okay, of explaining how I'm wrong. All right, and I can't pay him for that. So this was his bullshit. Evasion. This is where he just runs away from the subject again. If you look at my channel, you see there is it is there to help students. What help are you doing? Help them what? Help them what? March in the parade? Give me my old-time physics? It's good enough for me? I mean, we waste billions of dollars answering questions no one needs answers to. The Higgs boson will not even cure a common cold. I mean, none of this crap physics goes anywhere at all. None of it has anything to do with any advancement in technology. Show me where MV squared has advanced human progress in any way. It hasn't made penicillin. It hasn't done a damn thing. It's retarding your intelligence. It's not enhancing it. Okay, through their advanced level physics courses, 16 to 18. So I don't, that's, I don't know, maybe that's another country thing, maybe that's a British thing. In America, you don't really have any of that. You just take physics. But anyway, I have been a physics teacher for 40 years, and my students, well, we're not talking about your students. You're on the internet talking to the world. You're talking to kids everywhere. And in my opinion, you're just talking shit. You're talking absolute religious nonsense, dogmatic crap that you've never investigated. You've never found it to be true because they showed you it to be true. They just tell you it's true. And then the part that is absolutely preposterous, the points I made about ballistic pendulums, you conserve 99% of the momentum, yet you lose 99% of the kinetic energy. You say that's a rational theory? That you're helping your students by telling them that's what happens? Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah, it makes no sense at all, but isn't it fun? It's fun when things don't make any sense. I mean, what the hell is that? How is this any different than just telling people there's a Holy Ghost and then not explain anything about it? What do you mean, Holy Ghost? What's a fucking ghost? Where's ghost? Where did Jesus talk about fucking ghosts? Anyway, and others, students and others appreciate what I put online. Yeah, so what? There's lots of little kids that say, thank you, Mommy, for telling me about Jesus. You indoctrinate, and then the indoctrinatees will sit there and make little icons out of you because you brought them the special knowledge of the Jeebus. What's the difference? There's no difference here. This is like saying, kids will let the minister molest them. Yeah, of course they will, because they're in awe. All right, the content is accepted specification. What does that even mean? Accepted by who? The bunch of religious kooks. A bunch of people propagandizing for a fake reality that never existed. Newton never invented this crap. It isn't Newton's mechanics. It's absolute nonsense. NASA doesn't even use this nonsense to land on the moon. And you're just propagandizing for a pile of crap. All right? And you will not be told. You will not defend yourself against the accusation. Because you can't. And that's the simple truth. You can't explain why you believe something that's nonsense. Why you believe what you know not to be true. You know it doesn't take 100 times more energy to go 100 miles an hour than it takes to go 10 miles an hour. You know it's not true. Oh. I appreciate that scientific knowledge has developed over time. Well, what does that have to do with it? We're talking about the fact that mistakes have been made. Like the wrong assignment of plus and minus, and your physics didn't have the integrity to say, we better fix that. Before we spend forever with wrong diagrams about somehow, the amperage going some kind of different direction than the voltage, maybe we should fix that because it's just plain stupid. Along the way, there have been conflicting views. Well, you don't understand any of that. You think the conflict was in the 1800s when the conflict started in 1668. Okay, but this channel is not intended as a forum to discuss these. Well, frankly, the channel isn't all that interesting. And so to sit there and say it's what it's intended for is kind of just bullshit. You're talking, you're arguing, you're stating a truth in your videos, and if somebody can claim that's not the truth, then you should man up and defend yourself against the accusation. You should man up and defend your physics. I mean, if you're telling us it's the truth, then you should be willing to explain how it's the truth, how you can overcome the simple counter arguments pointing out how it creates paradoxes and absolute nonsensical rubbish. I put 1 pound on a scale and I have 1 unit of energy. I put a second 1 pound on the scale and all of a sudden I have 4 units of energy. That's preposterous nonsense. It isn't true. It isn't real. It's garbage. And here you are defending. I have an obligation to keep my students stupid and moronic. I have an obligation to indoctrinate them into our dogmatic, silly notions of reality. Oh, anyway, doing so here may confuse my students. Well, I think if actually showing them versus telling them would confuse them, well, I don't think that's the definition of confusion. Confusion is showing them. So why don't you show me one single piece of evidence indicating that it takes 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast? Why don't you show me one piece of physical evidence demonstrating that nonsense to be true? Oh, you're just such weasels. God damn it. I hate this planet of weasels. I welcome criticism, liar. You're obviously not welcoming it. You welcomed it with a slander. You slandered me, said I haven't done my research when you're the one who's ignorant of the research, ignorant of the history, the true, real fucking history. You're the ignorant one. You made these false accusations. You're not welcoming anything. I welcome criticism of the way I teach things. What, the way you teach things? What you teach, but I'm not. Don't criticize what I teach. Criticize my voice. Criticize my use of vocabulary, but don't criticize the crap I'm spewing. Oh, I see. That makes a lot of sense. And I always own up to my mistakes. What a lie. I'm telling you, well, you clearly made a mistake accusing me of not understanding the history. So that's a mistake on your part. You haven't apologized for it. You have no business making assumptions about who I am and how much fucking research I have done. And then the video speaks for itself. I mean, there was argument after argument after argument, perfectly illustrated, explaining how this is the way it works. They're telling you a nonsense story. I mean, I give you all kinds of examples. What do you think the truth is? Do you think when something weighs something, there isn't pressure on that scale, and that pressure can just be turned horizontally, and I can see exactly how much pressure gravity created by just releasing the pressure horizontally and seeing how much velocity it gives the object? And that would be exactly the amount of momentum that went in. No, it's a perfect way. Do you teach it? No. Because it's not consistent with your nonsense theory. The fact is, if kids did that simple experiment, they're not going to get the answers you're predicting. Okay. God, you're just people. Anyway, there is a number of excellent channels where the evolution of the accepted dogma is discussed. Isn't that amazing? So he's using the word dogma satirically, like he's pretending it's not dogma by calling it dogma, when clearly that's all it is dogma. It's a bunch of unevidenced assertions about reality, okay, and that's it. You could even say under-evidenced, okay, if you want to be a little bit fairer. But really, do you actually know that Eddington wrote in his journal, okay, that he got 10% of the data quality, that he was hoping for 10,000 stars per glass slide and he got 1,000, and that he stated he wouldn't stake his life on the results, and yet it was a New York Times headline saying Einstein proven right on an experiment with that poor data quality. And you think that's good physics. And they've never repeated the experiment from Earth successfully beyond the margin of error. And they've never even attempted it from space with 400 times better resolution. You think that's good science. That's a preposterous assertion. It's just preposterous. On its face, absolute nonsense. That is the exact opposite of good science. It's so fucking ironic that you could even think of yourself as a scientist. You're so anti-science. Anti the process. And then he links to the stupid history, this history with Glendella, or whatever the fuck it is. I've emailed her twice. She responds with nothing, okay? She will not accept any criticism. She has me blocked. I can't even comment on her videos. So hardly somebody who has any integrity or desire to actually get the story right. Now, I'll say that most of her videos are very good. All right, the research is done well, but her de Chardonnay Leibniz video is absolute crap. Okay, superficial crap. Not even close to getting it right. So, what the fuck? There's debate that takes place on this channel? No, there isn't. She spews her shit just like the rest of you dogmatists. There's no frickin' debate. Oh, here's an interesting item for sale. Yeah, I guess you don't need that. How did I close my tab? That was a mistake. A mistake on my part. All right. There's no back button. Damn it. It's always something. Well, anyway, I don't really need that link. Yeah, I can just go back here. All right, so that's it for what's on my channel. So we'll go read some of the tripe on his channel now. He doesn't say anything, frankly. It's all mindless marbles creating this whole fake, phony, and false narrative as usual. I mean, these people are just such despicable liars, you know. They come nowhere close to countering a single fucking argument. They can't actually play the video and actually argue it. I mean, the irony is Mindless Marbles actually plays my clips, but doesn't provide any counter argument. You know, it's hilarious. It's so bad, so stupid. All right, so I'll take a pause and we'll move on to the other video. All right, so I posted the link to my video with all kinds of arguments in it. Okay, half hour of physics arguments. He replies with, "I like the lion and I like your hair." Okay, who cares? I don't know what you really look like. Your cartoon is doofy. There, that's my response. It's not hateable, but it's doofy. Okay, this video is an introduction to students. So he titled the video Hard Bits, Gravitational Potential. Now, does that sound like it's going to be an introduction video? It's called Hard Bits, Gravitational Potential. No, it doesn't sound like that's what it is at all. All right, introduction to students have not bet this topic before. So what is that? How does that change whether or not you should be a liar, frankly? I mean, on whether you should talk nonsense and explain gravity as some sort of mystical force that doesn't have any real properties and that somehow creates this magical circumstance where all of a sudden I put 1 pound on the scale and I have 1 unit of energy. And then I put a second pound on the scale and I magically, just by magic alone, now I have 4 units of energy. Now, how is that teaching anything but nonsense and garbage? Brother. My video helps them. So anybody, every preacher can say that. Oh, I'm showing people the love of Jesus, the love of Mohammed. Yeah, so they can jihad against the rest of the world and kill the Satanists. Or whatever they think. I don't know what Satan is, a snake or something. I don't know. Yeah. No, I haven't researched Islam. I know it's wacky, but I don't know exactly what they think the bad guy is. I don't think yours does. Well, that's an accusation. I'm countering your accusation with a counter accusation. You should have the balls to produce a piece of evidence. I produce lots of reasoning in my video explaining all the paradoxes and the nonsense. You should have the same integrity to demonstrate where you think I'm teaching wrong, that I've made a mistake somewhere. You should be able to point out the goddamn mistake. You should be able to do that. If you're going to claim I'm making a mistake, you should be able to show it. And you should be able to show it with a piece of evidence. If you believe momentum doesn't have to be conserved. So, yeah, I'll jump to a mindless marbles argument. But somewhere in this nonsense, marbles is going to bring up this nonsense experiment done by physicist Michael. So let's just do that real quick. Just to illustrate exactly what it shows and exactly how this lying sack of crap, okay, is just that, a liar. I mean, a pathetic liar about what was demonstrated in the video. So you have this simple enough scenario. You have a spring, okay, same spring compression. I compress the spring exactly the same amount. In one case, I put a 2 mass here and I put a 2 mass here. Could be a 3 mass, doesn't really matter. In the other case, I put a 1 mass here and a 1 mass here. Okay. Now, in the experiment, what took place was I get a total of momentum, total energy, okay, in terms of momentums, mass and velocity. I get a total of, let's just say 3,000 here. And I get a total of 1,000 here. That is stuff moving, okay? Now, he could say this is, both of these objects, it's a spring. So both of them move exactly the same. So he would argue, I guess Mindless Marble says this is 0 energy and this is 0 energy. So everything's just fine because there's the same energy going this way as this way. We just subtract the 2 and we get 0. So springs don't produce any energy. So I can compress the spring and then I can have it expand somewhere, and when it expands, zero energy is produced. Maybe that's what he's arguing, but I mean, clearly this isn't indicative of conservation of momentum, is it? No, it's not indicative of conservation of momentum. It's clearly demonstrating a lack of conservation of momentum. All right, and that should be accounted for. Why is this happening? And how far does it go? How light do I have to make the object when I get to finally zero energy? And how heavy can I make it to increase to 4,000 joules or 5,000 joules or 10,000 joules? So the heavier the object I put, the more energy they get. The lighter the object is, the less energy I get. And just happens that guns do exactly the opposite, right? In terms of kinetic energy, the gun makes the bullet go away with 2,000 joules, and the gun recoil is only 2 joules. So how exactly is that consistent with anything Newton said? That's an equal and opposite reaction? 2 joules versus 2,000 joules? Everybody's supposed to believe that's an equal and opposite reaction? So that's the obvious lie of the physics, okay? They're lying, okay? They don't believe in Newton's third law, clearly. They don't think it's a law of any kind. There's no obligation to conserve momentum. We can blow it up anytime we want. That's their real theory. That's their real physics they're arguing for. I mean, it's just, oh, I mean, how despicable these people are. These liars. I mean, in hindsight, I mean, you know, to the future, right? I mean, this is disgusting, right? That all of these naysayers, nitpickers, cowards, fools, idiots, they sat here and they just talked absolute shit. They didn't respond to a single fucking argument made. And they got away with it because human beings by nature are just droney marchers in a parade. They're just bandwagon riders. Whoever gives them the most candy, that's their best friend. I mean, they're simps and dupes and fools. Oh, God. You wouldn't let them babysit a goldfish, let alone raise children. If you had any integrity at all, you'd pass a law against it. All right. So I responded to this tripe. Okay. Isaac Newton was the father of gravitational theory. Quoting him exactly, okay, and this is the part where he says, if any force generates a motion, a double force will generate double the motion. That's all. Okay, triple the force, triple the motion. So there's no capacity for there to be any such thing as any kind of idea, okay, that 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast. He's clearly saying you want to go 5 times as fast, you just put in 5 times more fuel. All right, clearly Newton didn't believe twice the force, 4 times the energy. And if you cared about the truth or the intelligence of your students, you wouldn't be teaching silly, unevidenced fables. Show some integrity and actually argue my arguments. Does a 5 mass going twice the velocity have twice the energy of a 10 mass going half the velocity? There, a simple enough question. He will not answer it. Can you link to any evidence? I mean, it's just amazing. These duplicitous, lying cowards. So let's see if we can find another comment by Understanding with Dave. Dave has the truth. He'll teach us and show us. Oh, there, no. All we get from Dave is, I'm afraid I agree. And I'm sure he's agreeing to some sort of slander typed by Mindless Marbles. I mean, so pathetic. All right. Let's see. I think I gotta make sure we have all of the dopey comments. Do have to go through the procedure. Come on. All right. So let's see. The first Mindless Marbles pile of lies. The person is a dishonest and malicious person. So in what way? So again, where? Show me the dishonesty. Show me anything stated in the video I produced that was dishonest. You liar. I mean, plainly lying. What did I say in my video response to the physics he preached? Where did I say something that was a lie or dishonest? Where? I mean, this is so bad that people can get away with this slander that does nothing other than confuse people. What's confusing about simple analogies? Simple analogies describing that if you're going to cross a stream, the stream is going to apply a force to you in the direction that the water is moving, and that if you wish to go straight across the stream, you will have to apply a counter force to remain on a straight path. People rather than help them. So I showed this Susskind video, right? The other day I showed Susskind using exactly that. Hydraulics, water, water under pressure, okay, explaining how gravity works, using that analogy. Doesn't mean anything to these people. They don't care. They don't care. It's exactly the same. Rain, streams, all the same. It's the same analogy. So Leonard Susskind can do it, but I can't do it. I mean, complete duplicity. He thinks F equals ma. Let's understand it's not Newton's statement, and clearly F equals ma looks harmless, but they think the A means per second per second. They think the A means you square the velocity change, that any change in velocity is somehow a squared function, okay, that you square the force, where Newton clearly stated you don't square the force. There is no squared force concept. 1 unit of force, 1 unit of change in your momentum. That's what Newton stated. And he's just lying right there. He's lying that this controversy is anything other than the controversy between Newton and Leibniz. That's where it started, and that's where it should have ended. F equals m is the wrong equation. It's the wrong formalization. Again, there's nothing wrong with saying ma if acceleration is just a change in your velocity. But if acceleration is going to be a squared function, then yes, it's nonsense. And unironically claims NASA scientists, so this is the part that's just pathetic. I mean, okay, just like the Susskind thing, right? If I actually could prove that the computer that navigated the lunar module to the moon did not have F equals ma in it, it didn't have 1/2 mv squared in it. It didn't even use the formula for anything. It had no function. The formula was of no use because all the lunar module cared about is how much thrust, that is how much mass at a velocity it shot out of itself. And that's all that mattered to NASA, was what's the momentum of the exhaust. That's what's going to move the spaceship. That's what moved the lunar module. He's claiming otherwise. I mean, NASA said it. We use Newtonian mechanics to land on the moon. Basically saying it isn't Leibnizian mechanics. Are using F equals mv. That's exactly right. They're using momentum to measure the energy of thrust. Physicist Michael has admitted this fact, and here you are still claiming something else is true. When they say they're using Newtonian mechanics, he has no understanding of the concepts he tries talking about whatsoever. So again, where is your evidence that NASA uses something other than momentum to calculate the energy of the thrust they navigate with? Not the thrust they take off with, because that's just a lie about joules of energy in that's the rocket equation. We're talking about navigating in the vacuum of space, not pushing yourself through atmosphere. All right. I can give countless many other examples. Please give any that actually have a piece of evidence connected to them. All right. And it's not a case where he has not been tried to be reasoned with. So again, there is no reasoning. They just make counter assertions with no evidence. Again, they will right to your face state that they actually believe that I put 1 pound on a scale, I have 1 unit of energy. I put a second 1 pound on the scale, I have 4 units of energy. They assert it's an absolute truth when the scale says completely differently. All right. He was presented well done evidence, so a big lie. So I've all these experiments. They still have videos up where they didn't even make measurements correctly. So they measured the heights wrong. They've done so many things that are just completely stupid mistakes they've made in not understanding the variables of the experiments. And those videos are still up, still claiming they proved something when they didn't even do the measuring correctly. That can be done with basic pendulums or cart collision. So again, there is no such thing as basic anything. All of it has been found to be having the nuance of a reality. There are no ideal levers. There's no ideal systems. Okay, every system has to be understood for the little bits of prejudice and bias that are built into them. The very fact is that a spring, for example, has a maximum expansion speed. So there is a point where I could put something in front of the spring and it can't produce the velocity necessary. It can't give it more momentum because it can't move any faster. This is as fast as it can move. It can't move any faster. So it can't give the object any energy. It can't give it the energy it would if it was ideal. It's not an ideal spring. All right. Let's see. Against some of his claims, and he has simply refused to acknowledge their validity. I've just pointed out, I just drew one of the experiments on this board, and the experiment is clearly producing a paradox. It's producing an outcome that doesn't make any sense. There's a certain amount of energy in an explosion. I've illustrated it with bullets. If I put 2 bullets in a zip gun, I can get 4,000 joules of energy out. I put 2 heavy steel rods in the zip gun that weigh the same amount as a gun, and I get 4 joules. So I get 4,000 in one case, a measure of the joules of the explosion. In the other case, the measurement is 4. 4 versus 4,000. If you had any gauge that got answers that bizarrely different for the same thing, it's measuring the same quantity. How can the same quantity, the same thing, get such preposterously different measurements? It's nonsense. It's a frickin' paradox. It needs explanation, and you have come nowhere even close to the first word of an explanation. You haven't typed the first sentence of an explanation. You coward. You slandering coward. All right. Refuses, yes, obviously I don't acknowledge the validity of crap experiments. As I have pointed out, even the Professor Lewin famous experiment does it in front of, on TV cameras, MIT audience full of parents. They actually were parents in the audience. All right, so he had to make sure the damn thing worked. And he has blobs of clay on the air carts. I mean, obvious shenanigans. When one other physicist video channel did engage with him, he didn't engage with any of my arguments. He ran away from my arguments, clearly. All that the person got was just perennial insults from DS with no attempt on DS' behalf to actually understand or engage with that person's arguments. So show me. Link me to these arguments. Link me to this brilliant counter-argument. Where is it? Where is this argument defending it takes 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times faster? What a liar. Oh, pathetic. So, more mindless marbles. So I had responded, so I guess this is a quote. So, we have to find where my comment is. Oh yeah, this is it. Okay, where I quoted Newton. So he's responding, okay, to the comment to Dave. All right. So I stated, clearly Newton didn't believe twice the force, 4 times the energy. He didn't have a notion of energy. So can you believe it? He said that Newton didn't have a notion of energy. That Descartes and Galileo and Newton didn't have any idea what an energy is. Now, they didn't have the word energy, but they clearly said quantity of motion. They understood it as a quantity and that it was related to motion. Okay, now they could have said mass motion. They could have qualified or defined it a little more specifically. But that's what they knew was the word energy, was quantity of motion. And we know that quantity of motion was exactly comparable to momentum, mv. That they're exactly equivalent terms. Momentum and quantity of motion are exactly equivalent terms. To say that he didn't have any notion of energy when he was talking about momentum is amazingly lie. It's just an amazing lie about Newton's intelligence. All right, he didn't have any notion of energy, especially not one that can be converted between different forms. Everything he talked about was converting energy from different forms. So it's just such a complete lie. Overtly right in the text, it says right there, a force generates a motion. Okay, he says, what do you think? The force is not a different form? The force is either in the form of gravity or the force is in the form of some object that hits it. I mean, what a lie to sit there. He didn't have any notion of converting between different forms. I mean, what a fucking lie. And you get away with this lying on the internet. He is clearly talking about the relationship between force and momentum. He's clearly talking about the relationship between, the whole colliery is talking about objects banging into objects. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Right after that sentence, he starts talking about object A is in collision with object B. I mean, how could you possibly say this crap? Okay, I mean, amazing. The relationship between force and momentum, in which F delta T equals delta P. That's not what he wrote, frankly, but it doesn't really matter. The simple truth is if time is the total event, okay, it's just your net force, then it's just a change in your net momentum. And that's what Newton believed. At the time, quantity of motion stood for momentum. Duh. So it was just complete lies. Okay, just absolute nonsense. All right, and then he quotes me, and if you cared about the truth or intelligence of your students, you wouldn't be teaching silly, unevidenced fables. What fables is he teaching? It's right in my video. MGH. It gets wrong answers. It's not the truth. 1 pound falling 4 times the distance does not weigh the same as 4 pounds dropping 1 unit of distance. It's not fucking true. God damn. This is just another perennial attempt to slander. So again, that's a lie right there. Clearly it's an attempt to counter-argue, and let's argue actual physical facts. Let's argue the Mythbusters when they crash cars, right? They crash the car at 50 miles an hour, it crashes this much. They crash at 100 miles an hour, it crashes twice as much. Not 4 times as much, just twice as much. No evidence of 4 times the energy. You, on the other hand, are ironically evading valid points made by your analogies. You, on the other hand, are ironically evading valid points made that your analogies, so this is another preposterous lie, of gravity make no sense whatsoever. So the very analogies that Leonard Susskind uses to teach the most advanced Einsteinian relativity theories is somehow not acceptable. You're not allowed to use a water analogy. You're not allowed to use a wind analogy. You're not allowed to use a photon analogy. None of these analogies are applicable to the inverse square law, which they all are, and none of them are applicable to the simple function of gravity, which is clearly a differential. You're in a force differential, and the force differential will affect you based on how long you're in it. I can quote Leonard Susskind saying those exact words, just about. Okay, you want to know how much force? You just figure out how much time. How much time was it in the differential? Well, I tell you how much force it collects. So again, another preposterous mischaracterization of the truth. It's a fucking lie. It's just that simple, and he gets away with it. See Ian's latest video. I mean, amazing. This moron, I mean, he is a true imbecile, okay? There's no other, he's an imbecile. He didn't counter anything. There's no counter. I haven't watched the video, but it's just the same argument he keeps making, that somehow gravity isn't rain. Well, of course gravity isn't rain. We can do things. We can block rain. We can't block gravity. But clearly in every analogy given, I didn't say anything incorrect. He didn't play my video, show the quote, and then counter what I said with any evidence whatsoever that anything I said isn't true. The longer you sit in the sun, it is an absolute fact, the more suntan you will get. And nothing else is going to affect how much suntan you're going to get except how much fucking goddamn time you spend in the sun. And it doesn't matter whether you walk in circles. It doesn't matter whether you spin around. It doesn't matter what kind of motion, okay, you impose upon it. All that's going to matter is how long you're in the goddamn sun. The analogy is perfect. It fits perfectly. It's just an absolute lie that this fucking goddamn idiot could say anything to debunk it. I mean, amazing that he would claim that moron has anything to say that's useful. And why didn't you leave a link to his fucking video? If you say his video is the truth, huh? Why don't you show yourself to have no integrity by linking to the garbage analysis that is no doubt in the video? Along with my latest community post that has no physics in it. There's no physics in his fucking post. He doesn't explain how anything is wrong with those analogies at all. Just more garbage. Oh, amazing. What a liar. Oh, it's just horrible. There should be a law against it, really. There should be a law against people lying like this. Highlighted how you repeated the same nonsense even when it was clearly outlined why your rain analogy fails. It doesn't fail in any respect whatsoever. It is exactly how gravity functions. It's essentially you're in a field differential. The fact is there's more stuff going this way than is going this way. The fact is if I made a bucket to collect the stuff that is your mass, the fact is you collect the stuff. Dropping a hammer and a feather on the moon proves the goddamn theory. The hammer lands, a big dust pile flies up. The feather lands, a little tiny dust pile. No dust pile, frankly. And it's all because one object collected a whole bunch of force, because it has a big giant bucket, a big giant mass. The other object collected almost no force because it had almost no mass to collect it with. I mean, the analogy is perfect. All right, amazing. If you cared about the truth or intellectual honesty, you would deal with them. So yeah, okay, I'll play his video and I'll show how he's a fucking idiot, a moron, a double dope. I mean, he is dumber than dumber. All right, show some integrity and actually argue my argument. So again, the video is full of arguments, all right, explaining how it actually works. And they could be easily refuted if they had any counter argument. But they don't have a counter argument. They have no way to compose a counter argument because everything I said was goddamn right. He has no obligation to engage with complete time wasters like you. So he has no obligation to defend nonsense. So again, it's just like they're just defending the religious tyranny. We don't have to defend our fable. We don't have to prove any of this shit. We'll just preach it and preach it and preach it. And if we can kill the what do you call the heretics, yeah, even better. However, he should be informed about the fact that other people did deal with you, so it's just a huge fucking lie. All right, and got needless abuse in return. And these is from the people who send cops to your house. These are the people who post images of your house and family. These are the people talking about somebody being abused. I mean, the irony of this lying. They are the terrorists, okay? They're the ones trying to get you thrown off of YouTube. They're the ones trying to censor. They're the ones trying to shut other people up. They're the ones running from the fucking stand-up argument because they have no fucking integrity as human beings. They're disgusting weasels. All right. For reference, just to back up the fact he has been rationally dealt with. So this first link, as I point out in my comment, is to this garbage theory that the same spring can produce any amount of momentum you want it to. Just put heavy objects in front of the spring, you get lots of momentum. Put light objects in front of the spring, you get almost no momentum. So obviously garbage science. And the second one is a video that doesn't prove a damn thing, that contradicts a damn thing I said. It changes the velocity of a free-falling object. Obviously, there's more energy going into the object because it's falling on a longer time through gravity. It has less velocity. So obviously the thing, it's being slowed down by is collecting the velocity. Not very complicated at all. If I apply friction to something free falling, I'm going to slow it down and I'm going to collect the force it would have had. Duh. Alright, so my comment to mindless marbles. The first link is to an experiment where the same exact spring with the same exact compression is shown to produce non-conservative different total momentums. Put heavy objects on the spring, get twice or more the momentum. Put lighter objects on the spring, get no momentum at all. Get maybe no momentum at all. Complete paradoxical garbage. Complete nonsense. Completely refutes any notion where Professor Lewin says nature can deal with kinetic energy one way or another, but nature can't finagle momentum. Well, obviously they believe nature can fuck momentum all it wants. The second leak pretty much proves MGT. When you drop an object slowly in gravity, you kind of obviously can collect more gravitational force, or more precisely, you can give your would-be free-falling force to another object. So you would gain force as you're falling, you would gain momentum and velocity, but clearly because it's rubbing or, stopping you from free falling, it's going to collect the force instead. Mindless Marbles is an incredibly small person with a very small-minded agenda. He will not show you evidence it takes 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast, or any of the other physics facts he claims to be true. Alright, so let's see. And then I responded to, I don't know why these are in this order, but we'll do it anyway. So I responded to, he didn't have a notion of energy, especially not one he can convert between different forms. So I responded to his assertion that Newton didn't know what he was talking about. This is a ridiculous slander against one of the greatest scientists in human history. Every one of his laws illustrates conservation of momentum. He very clearly believed momentum must be conserved in the universe. It is the most repugnant of internet trolls. It is most repugnant that internet trolls can casually insult Isaac Newton's intelligence. It's disgusting that these people lie about Isaac Newton, and they're lying about him. They know it's not true. They're just talking shit. They know that. They know they haven't researched it. They know they don't. That they know the controversy exists. They know that Newton did not accept Leibnizian physics. All right, the first link is to an experiment where the same exact spring with the same exact compression is shown to produce non-conservative different total momentums. Clear enough statement by me. And Mindless says, just fantastic. People have already dealt with this point of yours by pointing out. So there's no pointing out anything, okay? Let's understand. They haven't dealt with it in any way whatsoever. Zero. Except to say, well, it's zero here and it's zero here, right? The spring produces zero momentum because the thing going this way cancels the thing going this way, so it's zero. They're both zero. Zero momentum. That's their claim. The springs produce zero momentum. So a compressed spring expanded produces zero total momentum. That's their assertion. And it's idiotic on its face. That's like saying a piece of dynamite has zero energy. It's idiotic. Because it produces force this way, and it produces force that 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 way. Because they all equal each other, it has no energy. That's their fucking theory. That's what they disputed me with. Nonsense. That preposterous a pile of nonsense. A nuclear bomb has zero energy. Because they all cancel out. That's their fucking theory. Anyway, pointed out that your notion or definition of total momentum, total momentum is the total movement of mass, okay, does not match the correct notion of momentum. So the correct notion is nuclear bombs produce zero momentum. Amazing stupidity. Your made-up misunderstanding of what total momentum is has no bearing on reality. So again, he's saying it has no bearing on reality. They believe nuclear bombs have zero energy, and that's the truth, and they're going to teach little kids that. So what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of nuclear bombs? They don't have any energy. Okay, yes, if you introduce the wrong definition, you end up with paradoxical garbage. That's your fault, not anyone else's. So he thinks I'm the one introducing paradoxical garbage because I claim no compressed springs have stored energy, that dynamite has stored energy, that nuclear bombs have stored energy, and that is released as actual momentum. Masses moving. And there'll be a net difference in the masses moving. Before the explosion, not too much mass moving. After the explosion, lots of mass moving. Put heavy objects on a spring, get twice or more the momentum. Put lighter things on the spring, get no momentum at all. Complete paradoxical garbage, as I stated. Your rejection of this amounts to a rejection of the experiment. So just absolute nonsense. Of course I reject the experiment. Obviously I'm saying he didn't do it well, because he can't destroy momentum. Okay, because it refutes your notion of momentum as the correct notion. How does it dispute it in any way whatsoever, besides me saying that obviously the experiment is nonsense? It isn't consistent with the first, second, or third law of Newton's mechanics. That's not a valid argument when this is precisely one of the things we are investigating. So again, you're investigating nothing. You're preaching something. And your evidence sucks. And this is just evidence of your sucky evidence, because now you're claiming you don't have to conserve momentum. That momentum doesn't have to be conserved. It's not a rule. It's not a law. It's not a fact. That's your claim. Unless you are okay with circular reasoning. There's nothing circular. You either believe, goes right back to the beginning again. You either believe mv squared is conserved, or you believe momentum is conserved. But they both can't be conserved. That's the simple truth. One of them has to be right, and one of them has to be wrong. There's no way around it. And you don't have the guts to take responsibility for your claim that Newton was wrong and that momentum doesn't have to be conserved. You coward. The second link pretty much proves MGT. So I don't know if this is worth going into. I already demonstrated it. Let me just see what it says. The amount of energy was consistent mgh as the gravitational potential energy. Yes, yeah. Sometimes the height will, like in the case of the lever, the height is proportional to the energy. But it depends on the case. So if you're going to use pulleys, or you're going to use a lever, or you're going to use hydraulics, then you're going to get a 2-to-1 relationship, not a 4-to-1 relationship. So height will work in that case, but it's a special case you have to concede. And it's only circumstantially true. So it's only for that tiny little circumstance that you actually get a right answer. But clearly in space you get a wrong answer. If I launched something at twice the velocity in space, it's not going to go 4 times the distance. It's going to go twice the distance. So your formula will get the wrong answer. As physicist Michael explained and showed. So a lie. It's just a lie. He didn't show anything, didn't counter my argument at all. He just did a rickety pulley experiment, frankly. And then claim that somehow, because it works with a pulley, it works in reality. And it doesn't. All right, the total energy was roughly constant across time, i.e. independent of time. It clearly isn't independent of time. It's just stating that your friction is acquiring the energy at a constant rate from the falling object. It's causing the falling object to drop at a constant rate, so it's not gaining any velocity. The object that's dropping is dropping at a constant rate. It's not free falling. It's not doing Galilean 1, 3, 5, 7. It's not doing any of that anymore. I mean, a complete lie to sit there and say it showed anything other. I mean, just amazing nonsense. When you drop an object slowly in gravity, you kind of obviously can collect more gravitational force, or more precisely, you can give your would-be free-falling force to another object. You don't collect force. So this is the joke, right? Well, that's what's under contention. I don't know what magical thing you think happens to force, how force is acquired by an object, but he doesn't believe. Mindless Marble says somewhere he proved, his physics knows for sure, that force isn't collected, that you don't actually collect the momentum that you acquire, that something, you take it from it. So when a stream is flowing and I throw a boat in it and the stream loses energy and my boat gains energy, somehow my boat didn't really collect anything. You are misusing the term from how they are used in Newtonian mechanics. It's not Newtonian mechanics. That's so you just slandered Newton again. Okay, because what I'm talking is exactly Newtonian mechanics. Newton believed in a three-dimensional physical universe, okay? He didn't believe in your mushy, fake, framed crap. All right, force is something that is applied to something, and the application is as an exchange. It's purely an exchange. Newton described an exchange. Newton said basically the quantity of motion moves from one object into the other object. It clearly is transferred from one object to another object. Clearly, that's Descartesian statements, and Newton agreed with Descartes. So again, lie some more about the actual history and what the actual people actually said and asserted. You fucking liar. All right, let's see. So this is a ridiculous slander against the greatest science, blah, 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 blah. Okay, nothing you said counters anything I said here. So what a lie. So I just countered it. I just drew the example of the paradox created by physicist Michael. I have countered the argument with a clear assertion that, well, you think it makes sense that the same explosion can create different amounts of energy. I'm asserting that no, it can't. 10 megatons of TNT, whatever, is going to produce a certain amount of energy, and it really doesn't matter whether you put Empire State Buildings in front of it or feathers in front of it. It's the same fucking energy. All right, he had a notion of momentum. He did not have a notion of energy, especially one that could be converted between different forms or stored in different forms. So what a lie. So he just researched the same pathetic lie that somehow Newton didn't understand collisions. I mean, what a pathetic liar. He did tons and tons of experiments. He analyzed it over and over again, banging objects into other objects. What a fucking lie. Amazing that this fucker can lie about Isaac Newton like this and get away with it. That this piece of shit Dave guy won't even chime in and say, no, that isn't true. Newton did a ton of experiments. Newton knew what the fuck energy was. None of you cowards will defend Isaac Newton. Oh, you people are disgusting. Learn to actually read the post you criticize. What a liar. Okay, moreover, Collery Newton's third law states that momentum does depend on direction. So it's just a lie, okay? It's not what the Collery states. We've already been over it 3 times now. I went over it, drew it, and explained it exactly, explained how this Collery has nothing to do with any notion that you can make free momentum. Nothing whatsoever. And Newton makes it clear in the little statement he makes. Where is it? Right in here, he talks about, if I may say. Do you have the, yeah, if I may so say. Okay, so he's clearly going to say a part here where he's, stretching the truth a bit and saying, well, look, let's imagine. So it's essentially just says, oh, let's imagine I produce one part more and the object reflects. Then the other object has to have, because it's an equal and opposite system, the other object also has to have a portion of energy going in the opposite direction. And that's all he says. He doesn't say anything about making free momentum. So it's just a complete fucking lie again. And the fact that I made a whole video on this very exact point, and this liar pretends that I haven't already countered this. Fuck, what a piece of scum. As I said in the beginning of the comment, your definition of momentum doesn't match reality. Liar, liar, liar. And it does not match Newton's definition. It's just a fucking lie. So let's just state it quite clearly. Clearly, when Newton says twice the force, twice the velocity, 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity, he is directly disputing the physics you believe in. Account for that, liar. God damn it. You are working with false presupposition that momentum does not depend on direction. It doesn't. which disagrees with Newton and experimental reality. So again, he is absolutely asserting it's zero momentum. A fucking piece of TNT produces zero momentum. That's his fucking assertion. That's the fucking bullshit he wants to teach children, that there's zero momentum produced by any explosive device. It produces zero momentum. I mean, it's absolutely the shittiest kind of conceptual nonsense that could be fucking barfed by such creepy, stupid motherfuckers. And they get away with it. They get away with this fucking garbage. These lying scum. Ugh. You are free to refute Newton, however. Be my guest. I mean, what a fucking liar. To sit there and try to put that swill of Leibniz's garbage in Newton's mouth when clearly for 40 fucking years Newton opposed it. For 40 fucking years he opposed it. Disgusting. Alright, maybe that's enough. There's no, there's no evolution in this argument because human beings are sacks of suck. Dave, you're a sack of goddamn suck. Okay? You don't have the integrity to defend the fucking truth. And you defend yourself as, well, I'm just told to teach this crap. This is what's in the Bible and I'm supposed to say it and that's all I have to do. That's my job. And my students are very appreciative of me talking absolute shit. And then I molest them. Oh, okay. He doesn't do that part. But I just mean, this is just, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? People kiss the Pope's ring. Do you think they do it for any kind of good reason? God damn. You people are just such scum. God, I hate this planet.